7 minutes past 11 o'clock. Now it's time for answers to your computer-related questions. This is a paid presentation of InterQuest. Here is your host, Rick Arman.
All right, thanks a lot, John Kraft, and we welcome everybody to the program today. I'm on with Bill and Jeff from InterQuest at South Spring Street in Beaver Dam. Their telephone number is 885-0141. WeMakeTechSimple.com. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Good to see you, Rick.
You all ready to go? You ready to take questions from people?
Absolutely.
You guys got your thinking caps on? I mean, nothing's out of bounds here when it comes to technology, right?
Everything's on the table.
Okay, so that includes smart cars then, right?
Smart cars. We can talk about them a little bit.
Good deal.
I don't know how smart all the cars are. If you've driven in some of the most recent editions of vehicles that have come out, sometimes the advanced warnings radar in the front doesn't tell you that you're too close to the car until you're on the car.
Right.
You know, some of those things.
No, I was reading an article this morning that I found very interesting. T-Boone Pickens, who's the oil guru.
Yep. He's back out again?
Yeah, I saw an interview with him on ABC or something like that where I didn't realize this. Do you guys know that cars over in Pakistan run on natural gas?
Yeah.
And it's like less than $1 a gallon to fuel these things.
Natural gas is really inexpensive right now.
Yeah.
I was looking at wood pellet inserts, actually. I have a wood-burning fireplace at home, and I want to do something more efficient. And they were telling me that natural gas right now is a cheaper alternative than wood pellets or wood.
Yep.
Crazy.
And it's cleaner.
Right.
I believe.
Yeah, they were talking. I was watching this story, and I was reading about it, and I found it amazing because they said that people would not be going to gas stations anymore if that ever happened in America. They would just have a gas line run out to their garage.
Well, yeah,
they would
almost all have natural gas.
Right, and you
just refill at home.
Just refill right at home.
I have seen in some major cities, I've seen like delivery trucks and FedEx trucks and things like that run on natural gas.
Yeah, it's just
So
amazing.
There are some in the United States, but I don't think that some of those big oil companies actually want us to be using natural gas.
We've talked about using natural gas for our company vehicles at one point or another, and it really comes down to you can retrofit it. You can do that, and if we stayed in Beaver Dam all of the time, it would work. But
right.
we have jobs up in Wisconsin Rapids or out there pretty far, and if we're out and you need gas, what do you do? If you don't know, if you don't map out the places where you can get it, you have to rely on people planning the trip ahead, and that doesn't always work.
Yeah, so we'd have to rely on obviously gas stations that would sell natural gas. You know, so I mean, you know what? If I was paying $1.25 a gallon, I'd be fine with having to map things out. You know, you think about it.
Yeah.
It did bring to mind the whole idea of recycling and everything like that. And I wanted to ask you guys, by the way, our telephone number is 885-4446. If you have any question about technology, about computers, if you're having an issue with your laptop, if you're having an issue with your printer that you don't understand, you can call us at any point. When it comes to recycling, they tell us that we're not supposed to throw televisions and computers into landfills. I mean, what's the reason behind that?
Well, televisions have a lot of different chemicals inside of them that make them work, and you don't want that in a landfill. Computers have a lot of heavy elements that are relatively rare, and we want to reclaim those.
Oh.
We will run out of them at some point.
Okay.
Not anytime in the near future, but there's a lot of pieces in there, especially in the processor. There's some heavy rare earth magnets in the mechanical hard drives. And there's stuff like that you want to reclaim and reuse.
So what do you do then? I mean, do you just take it because it costs money to dispose of them, right?
It does. We pay to have computers recycled. So for us, it's a cost of ownership at some point. You're taking the responsibility to get rid of it responsibly. It's not something you just throw away.
Now, there is a place in Waupun outside of Bargains Galore where you can take and drop off TVs and electronics and things like that. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend you take a computer with a hard drive with your personal data on it.
Right.
But that's a good solution for a lot of people if they've got an old big TV or something that they want to get rid of.
Right, and I know Goodwill here in town will take old TVs and
as long as they work.
Right, as long as they can turn on.
Right.
So
I think one at a time or something.
All right.
Yeah.
885-4446 is the telephone number. That's 885-4446 if you have a question for Bill or Jeff today on InterQuest. So is there anything big right now in tech news? Is there anything we should be talking about?
Well, we constantly talk about 3D printing every once in a while, and I was reading a story recently that I thought was very interesting. There's a baby that was saved with 3D printing technology. The baby was born with a heart defect.
Oh, wow.
And it was a rather complicated surgery to save the child. And rather than go in for 2 surgeries, one where they explore what needs to be done, and then one where they perform the repairs on the heart, what they did is they used CAT scans to create an image, a 3-dimensional image of the baby's heart, and then used a 3D printer to print the heart exactly as it existed. And then the surgeon could determine how to go about repairing the child's heart before ever performing. They didn't do any exploratory surgery then. So he did his practice, he did his plan and his practice on a 3D printed heart, and then they were able to go in and accomplish the surgery in one shot, which is better for the child, and the child lived. I mean, it's a great story for how to use some of that technology for something.
Wow.
They didn't print the heart to use; they used it for practice.
That is crazy. 885-4446 is the telephone number. 885. Yeah, all of a sudden our headphones kicked in. I don't know why, but all of a sudden they kicked in. We do have a phone call. Hi, you're on with Bill and Jeff from Interquest. Can we help you?
Yes, I wanted to get something clear. Did you say that for computers and TVs you could do it at Goodwill or Bargains Galore?
Well, I know for a fact you can do TVs as long as they're working at Goodwill.
Okay.
And computers, I think you can still do them at Goodwill, I think.
If they function. But if you take a computer to Goodwill, you want to make sure that none of your own data is still on the computer.
All right. And what about Bargains Galore?
There's a big kind of a semi-trailer that's parked just outside of Bargains Galore, and I don't remember the hours. You might want to call over there and find out what hours they're open. But you can basically take any electronics. You can go load up any electronics at no charge there, and they don't pay you for them, but they do recycle them, so it's better for the environment.
All right.
Yeah. Call them to make sure you got the hours, and if there's any change in their services that we're not aware of, you want to call them just to make sure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
welcome.
885-4446 is our telephone number to call in today. Laptops. I mean, that's a little more work to try to get a hard drive out of a laptop, right?
Yeah, these days, Apple started the trend. Interestingly, they put the hard drive, the battery, and they soldered all the stuff inside, or made them very difficult to get to. We used to be able to take one plastic panel off the back and get the hard drive in and out. Now it's a disassembly process. And sometimes those laptops, hard drives are extremely small now that we have some very small solid-state drives, almost the size of a postage stamp. And getting those out and being able to read them to get the data off so you can send it in and the manufacturer doesn't ruin your hard drive or data can become difficult.
Older hard drives, or older laptops, I should say, they actually made it very easy to take the hard drive out. You know, some of them
didn't it just have a couple screws on the back that pulled the whole
usually
thing?
one or two.
Yeah,
it's usually 2 screws, and sometimes it popped out the side, and sometimes it just came right out the back. But yeah, I mean, consumers demand a thinner product. You know,
Thin and light caused it to change.
You know, manufacturers are responding to that demand, and Bill's absolutely right. You know, Apple is sort of the trendsetter. They have these sleek, sexy packages, and people that want a new laptop want something that's super thin and super light and easy to carry. And so there's always trade-offs with that.
right. Then trade-off
And
is
cost.
right.
It's thin, light, and then cost. They don't want to pay more for it to be thin and light. So we shrink it down and we make it easier to manufacture, but a lot more difficult to take apart and repair.
John?
Yeah, we had a caller saying that you can take non-working TVs to Goodwill.
Awesome.
Also.
Thank you.
All right. 885-4446 is the telephone number. My wife, well, I call it, it's supposed to be our laptop, but let's just call it my wife's laptop, has been getting hot lately. And it's only 3 years old. It's Toshiba. And I'm getting a blue screen that comes up. Now, I think I had her down there once, and we updated the drivers, and it was okay for a while. Could a computer getting hot cause a blue screen?
Yes. So what happens is when the processor or video card specifically, and that's the video card's what happened to Jeff's computer. It overheated and turned into a smoking.
Is that what happened to yours?
Yeah.
It fried. Like, why is there smoke coming out of the keyboard? Fried?
You know, if I don't push the limits every once in a while,
Right,
you know,
exactly,
how can I help our customers know where they are?
Yeah, so a processor has a thermal limit. It's how hot it can handle before it starts to exhibit problems where it can't deal with data correctly and it can cause blue screens. When you approach or exceed that thermal limit, it slowly degrades the ability for the processor to again approach that limit. So if you take a laptop and you set it on, say, a bed when all the vents are on the bottom, or a blanket or something, so it can't get any
Air?
air underneath it, and it overheats. It overheats and it crashes. The next time it does that, it's going to probably take a little less heat to get to the point where it's going to crash. And it's going to get a little less and a little less and a little less until it becomes a catastrophic failure for the piece of equipment. So you really want them. Laptops are the most susceptible to it, especially when they're sitting on someone's lap or
Right.
on a bed or a blanket or on the couch. Sometimes people put them on rubber mats or something like that. I know in our lab, our guys sometimes put a pencil under the back to keep them up off of our lab benches so that they get the best airflow they can. And you can get laptop coolers that sit underneath the laptop and blow some air up there, or make sure that they're getting the coolant they need. Today's laptops, the really thin and light ones we just talked about, they tend to not put a lot of venting on them, or they're in the back hinges. So you just got to kind of be aware of where your fans are and keep them cool.
If you got a solid state hard drive, though, does that matter? Because that's not as much heat, right?
The solid state hard drive uses less electricity and generates a lot less heat, but the processor and video cards still generate
Okay.
a tremendous amount of heat. If you take the heat sink off of a processor, besides the fact that it'll fry in a pretty short period of time, you can cook eggs on them pretty quick.
Okay.
They get hot.
And sometimes when computers overheat, and they overheat again and again and again, that can actually start to break down the thermal material between, say, the processor and the heatsink. And that thermal material basically is just a conduit to help pull that heat off of the processor and let the heatsink do its job. So sometimes, especially on older machines, if that thermal material is dried up or crusty, we can just take it apart, put a little thermal grease on there, put it back together.
Clean
and
it up.
Makes
you
a
clean
world
up
of
the old
difference.
stuff
Right.
that's been kind of,
Right.
it turns kind of clayey
Right.
instead of a nice paste. It's almost the consistency of toothpaste.
Okay,
is
so
accurate.
yeah, but on a laptop, that sounds like it could be a very difficult project.
On an old laptop, it's pretty easy. You take the back off, you find the processor, and you pop it out. Sometimes Dell, I know, and HP were famous for this. You take the back off, then you'd flip it over and take the keyboard off, and then flip it back over to get to the processor. Today, the Apple and Samsung and some of the really thin, light ones, it's a bit of a chore to get them apart. And
Right.
then you got to take the processor apart and clean it, put some thermal paste on it, and reassemble the whole thing. It can take some time.
I started to use my wife always has it on a plastic table, so it doesn't it sits up. But I just had her plug in a cooling mat underneath it now, and we'll see how that works. Because I did touch it, and it did feel pretty warm. I mean, I don't know what's too warm. But now when you put your hand by it, now it feels cool when it comes off of there. So that cooling
And
fan.
those cooling devices really they're very inexpensive.
Yeah, they're like $15.
And a lot of them have fans built in that you plug in the USB port to actually run the fan. And some of them are actually good for ergonomics, too. They get the laptop up.
Yeah,
and-
it was kind of
and
on
it
an
makes
angle.
it a little bit easier to type on the keyboard, too.
Yeah. 885-4446 is the number. We're going to go back to the calls. Hi, you're on with Bill and Jeff from InterQuest. How can we help you?
Hi.
Hi there.
When somebody posts a video on Facebook, or if a video is sent to me on email, and I click on it, I get nothing but a green screen. What could cause that?
What kind of computer do you have?
HP.
It's an HP, so it's running Windows.
Well, I have two. I have a new laptop, and I have a desktop.
Are they both?
And they're both doing it.
Okay. That's very interesting.
That is weird.
That is-
Normally,
Well-
you would expect one and not the other.
Yeah.
Because generally, it can be a codec. Who's your internet service provider? How do you get your internet?
AT&T.
Okay.
There are a few sort of standard codecs, and without seeing your computer, it's hard to tell exactly what you should do. But one of them is called Flash. It's made by Shockwave. So
Adobe.
which is purchased by Adobe now. So
Right.
it's Adobe Flash. But Flash is often used for videos. So a lot of times I think Facebook may use Flash, and a lot of other places do too. So maybe the first thing you should do is if you just Google for Flash Player.
Flash Player.
Right, Flash Player. It's a free download, and the first thing it'll do is check your computer to see you may have an out-of-date version, or you may not have it installed at all. And then download that and update that and give that a try. That's probably what it is.
I think I do have Adobe, though.
Well, yeah. And
You have Reader, maybe.
Right. The confusing thing is that there's about 100 different little things that you might need. Adobe Reader you probably do have. That's used to read documents, PDF documents.
Yeah, but okay.
The other thing would be then to just maybe run it down to the office and have them look at it for 10 minutes.
And we have a new service called Rescue that allows our staff to log in with your permission remotely while you're sitting at your computer and look at those things real quick without having to bring the computer down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's kind of bizarre that it would. I mean, she said she's got a new laptop and an older desktop, and I could see it happening on the older desktop, but not happening on the laptop. But having a
I've gotten new laptops. Well, my Razor didn't have Flash Player installed when I got it. Sometimes it gets overlooked.
You know, back in the old days,
I love being able to say that when we're talking about computers.
Microsoft used to install like everything you would want or need on your computer when you installed Windows.
Then they got sued.
And they got sued by Sun Microsystems before Oracle bought Java from Sun Microsystems. And the whole reason they got sued was they didn't want Microsoft to put Java on the computer for you. They wanted you to have to go get it from them rather than have Microsoft supply the Microsoft version of it.
What exactly is Java?
Java is a programming language. So back in 1995, when the World Wide Web was first coming out, the biggest problem with the internet at the time was how do you give people programs that will run on any computer they have? And by any, I don't mean any PC. I mean a PC running Windows, or a computer running an Apple operating system, or something running a Solaris or Unix or Linux or something like that. And so for the corporate world, like companies like BeRe that have offices in Germany and offices in the U.S. and offices in Latin America, they all need to be able to interact with a program where they may all have different operating systems on their computers. Sun Microsystems came up with a programming language that is platform independent. So you could write it in Java. You write the program in Java, and it runs in a browser window on any of those operating systems. So they allowed companies like BeRe, and I say that because back in 1995, we wrote a piece for the company that both Jeff and I worked for prior to starting InterQuest. That company wrote software for BeRe and other companies like that when Java was first created. And we did that because they wanted to be able to put like a sales report or something that was usable by a person on their computer, but they needed that program to be able to be used on any of those computer types, a Solaris workstation or an Apple Mac Classic at the time, or a Windows PC, no matter where they were in the world, and use this brand new thing called the World Wide Web to interact with the same data no matter what computer they were on. So they created this programming language called Java.
Okay, so how come nobody else has come up with their own programming language that would be different? I mean, I'm surprised Microsoft
There
has
are
it.
a number of them now.
Oh, there are.
Well, I mean, Flash is kind of one. You know, we
Flash
were
is
just
one.
talking about using Flash for video, but Flash can be used to write little games and different programs as well.
Adobe Air was tried by Adobe for a while, and that's still being used. HTML5 is a new standard that is trying to be developed for that. ASP.NET is a Microsoft programming language that is platform independent. ASP.NET is what we write most of our websites in. And we write Java. One of the downsides to Java, now that it's no longer bundled with every PC and has to be installed separately, it may not work. Once you install the Java client, it works on anything. The problem with Java is the program downloads from the web server onto your local computer, and your local computer's resources, its memory and its processor and its hard drive space, are used to create the user experience. It has to run on the computer.
Oh.
So Rick, you take a 7-year-old laptop and you put it next to a brand spanking new $2,000 Samsung, oh my gosh, is this thing fast, and you run a Java application on both. One of them is going to not be the same experience as the other one. One's going to be slow and pokey and take a long time to load, what you would expect from a slower computer, and the other is going to be faster. ASP.NET allows us to write a program that runs on the web server so that the computer viewing it, whether it's that 7-year-old machine or the brand new one, is going to have very close to the same experience.
Okay.
Because the processing that's taking place
Is not on the local computer.
very, very little of it's on the local computer.
Okay.
Almost all of it's on the server. Not everyone writes website material that way, because the downside to that is if you have a lot of users using your website service, your server that hosts the websites has to be able to handle all of them. So the server infrastructure is very expensive. You can host Java-based or other HTML5-based, those types of websites a lot more easily from the server side. So the server hosting place has to spend a lot more on their equipment to make sure that all the end users have a great experience. But we want all of our clients that buy websites from us to have their clients have an almost uniform experience,
Right.
regardless of the quality of their computer. So we feel it's important as a host and developer to create an environment where all of our customers get pretty much the same experience, instead of relying on our customers to provide their own hardware.
Well,
It's a philosophy thing.
I guess the question, the other question that comes up is we brought up Adobe. Well, why is it that you have a file called a PDF, but you don't have it? It's only Adobe that does it.
Well, actually, that has sort of changed a little bit over the years, too. Adobe is the most common method to read a PDF, but Adobe doesn't own the PDF format.
Okay. I thought maybe they did.
PDF stands for Portable Document Format, and they really pioneered it and implemented it. But, one of the reasons why Microsoft doesn't put Adobe Reader on your computer by default is because Microsoft wanted to sort of get into this PDF game too. So if you have the newest version of Office, if you have Microsoft Office 2013, you can open a PDF in Word and you can change it around and you can resave it. Or you can open a Word document and you can save it as a PDF without having any Adobe software at all.
Without buying the Adobe
Really?
Pro $200+
Just just a couple of years ago, the only way to really do that was just to pay Adobe a lot of money to buy the Adobe Acrobat program, not just the Acrobat Reader, but the Acrobat program.
Because that's the issue I've got. I mean, we get used to using Adobe. We do a lot here at the radio station, but they are just ridiculously priced.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I were to buy the Adobe program that we use here, Audition, at home, it could cost more than my computer.
You can. That's why it used to be that to do those types of advanced items, you'd have to buy expensive software from only one provider. The competition in the marketplace has given us many providers that can do some of the same features. So you can choose to buy Office 2013 Home and Business for, $219 and change, and do that in that format and get the other things that come with it, or Office 365 and do it, or Adobe. You can pick.
And Adobe still has, there's still a reason to buy that Adobe Acrobat Pro. One of the best reasons, I think, is they do a good job of creating forms. So if you create your form with the Adobe Pro, you can put that on your website. People could fill out the form and print it themselves.
Sure.
Or they could submit it and do a lot of different things. In fact, a lot of the tax forms, whether the state tax or the federal tax forms, like your 1040 form, you can go download that as a PDF, or they usually have a fill-in form, too, that you can go, rather than print it and write in by hand everything, you can just type it right in and print it out.
885-4446 is the telephone number. You're having a problem at home with a computer or a DVD player or a smart TV. You want to try to figure out how to fix it? This is the time to call then, 885-4446. We had a question last week when you guys were on with Stump the Geek over on WXRO on the morning show. Somebody asked about the next version of Windows coming out. And is it Windows 9? Is it Windows 10? What is it exactly?
It's Windows 10.
Okay.
Microsoft, I think they're just trying to distance themselves from Windows 8 a little bit. So
Right.
just-
Was Windows
They're
was,
playing hopscotch.
okay, is Windows 8 that bad?
No, it's not that bad.
Windows 8, if you take two computers with the exact same hardware and you run Windows 8 and Windows 7, the Windows 8 experience will be faster. The problem, because it's a more efficient operating system and it has more security. It has a lot of features in it that are very helpful for people that are security conscious in today's day and age. For instance, when the operating system kernel loads, it doesn't load to the same spot in memory every time, and in Windows 7 it does. The problem is that Microsoft just assumes that everyone is going to react the same way. they made some engineering choices instead of appropriate customer interaction choices, and they changed the start screen without giving anyone the option of
with the
changing it
tiles?
back. Yes.
Yeah.
And the tile layout is great with touchscreens, but I don't think they did their market research very well to realize that a very, very small percentage of people had touchscreens, and using a mouse with the tiled layout is really kind of silly. So they're going back to the drawing board as it relates to user interface and customer experience, and at the same time saving all of those security and performance features that they gained in 8.
So should I not be buying a computer right now? I should be waiting for Windows 10 to come out?
Well, Microsoft just announced Windows 10, and they hope to have it done in 2015. So, it could be about a year from now, maybe it'll be out, but they don't like to give out hard and fast dates this far out because they just don't know.
Remember, Windows XP was supposed to come out in the year 2000, and it didn't come out till 2002.
And the thing with computers is, there's always going to be something new coming out pretty soon. So should you wait for that next thing? You're always going to be waiting, and you're never going to be able to. So, it's kind of a game. Eventually, you're going to have to just decide, if I need a new computer now because mine is broke, there's no reason to try to wait for Windows 10 or whatever, especially because most people have found over the years that buying Microsoft's brand new operating system right when it comes out is not always the most pleasant experience. With Windows 8, they recently came out with the Windows 8.1 update, which is a free update for anybody that has Windows 8. And that backs off some of those features. It makes it easier to use the mouse and gives you back
your start button.
Gives your start button back and a lot of those kinds of things. But it was quite a while between when Windows 8 came out and when they released that 8.1 update.
Microsoft's got I appreciate the philosophy that they're using for their operating system development. They're going for security. They're going for lightweight, so that when they used to build operating systems, if we remember Vista, they assumed people had faster computers
than they actually had.
Right. They built operating systems to get bigger and more bloated. With Windows 7 and Windows 8, they went in the opposite direction. Windows 8 was the first time they really made an operating system purposefully to use fewer system resources than the previous one. They also wanted to get away from having an operating system for your tablet and one for your phone and one for your desktop, and them all being different. They wanted to create a way where the same operating system, the same user experience was on every device. They were just a little ahead of their time with it. I appreciate the philosophy. The implementation, not always so good.
So if we had to rank, if we can go back and look at this realistically, if we had to rank Windows, would we go the best was Windows XP, followed by Windows 7, followed by Windows 98, followed by maybe Windows 8, and then Vista or 95 work in there someplace?
That's only in hindsight, though, because when I remember clients, when we had to upgrade them from Windows 98 to Windows XP, they hated Windows XP.
Well, Millennium, we can agree that Millennium was the worst, can't we?
Many of them skipped
Everybody can agree that Millennium was
Millennium,
the worst.
followed by Vista.
Followed
by Media Center Edition.
Oh, my gosh, that was terrible. Windows, I remember upgrading people from 98 to XP and them going, this sucks. This is terrible. I can't believe what they did. It crashes all the time. I don't know where everything is, and being really frustrated with it. It took Windows XP Service Pack 1. It took a couple of...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It took over a year until they worked all those kinks out, and then people used it for 9 years straight and got used to it, and suddenly, I don't want anything new. In retrospect, we can rank them, but in reality, it's really about the time frame you're in. 10 years from now, we might go back and say Windows 8 actually had a really good number of security features that really saved people a lot of money and resources. When you're trying to get past the start button not being where it is and using the computer... My gosh, I remember installing Windows 8 for the first time on my guinea pig self computer. I sat down in front of it and went, I can't turn it off. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah, you couldn't.
How do I close the stupid program? I was so upset. I sat there for 15 minutes yelling at the machine. I finally figured it all out, and I was fine with it. But
you had to figure it out.
I had to figure it out.
Right.
It wasn't intuitive. And when we're designing things at our office, when we go through it, we don't always do it the right way the first time. And usually the failure is when someone sits down with something, they need to be able to figure it out without an instruction manual. You don't want to have to go ask for help. No one likes asking for help. If they can figure it out themselves, they much prefer it. So top to bottom, left to right, big buttons and little amounts of information on each screen. and it's hard to do all the time.
And I think, honestly, Windows 8 is not that bad. If we waited until Windows 8 Service Pack 1 came out, like we did with Windows XP, it could eventually be the operating system that everybody wants. But I think Microsoft has this sort of stigma where at least every other operating system, people just decide that they detest it. And I think Microsoft has learned from Windows Vista that rather than try to force it down their throat, they'll just change it up a little bit, give it a new name, and then people will give it a fresh shot.
Well, things like Twitter, Facebook, social media, communication, has changed the development cycle. When you get a bad rap for something, it doesn't take a year and a half for everyone to figure it out. It takes about 20 minutes. It's just so different. And when Windows XP came out, we were still talking about, will every household have a computer?
Right.
That was 12 years ago. In that 12-year time frame, we now talk about how many computing devices does the household have, how many computing devices does each person have.
Yep.
It used to be, does each household have one? Now it's how many does each person in a household have. It's just so drastically different how people interact with these types of devices. And the operating systems that run them become extremely important, and their ability to share with everyone else that has a device of some kind, their experience becomes very important.
Well, and let's be realistic. Service packs are created because enough people are using the devices to find problems, right?
Well, service packs are created because we're all beta testers for manufacturers.
Well, don't we have to be, though?
You do. You could never test something enough to get it perfect on the way out. There are so many. You think about how many billion people there are on the planet, and if all of them have multiple, well, they don't yet, but they will have multiple devices, how could you possibly test every combination of software and hardware that exists everywhere and make sure none of them break? It's not possible.
It'd be great to see if every person in this world had a computer. That tribe way down in the rainforest of Brazil is playing Candy Crush. Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would be. And we at CES, some of the interesting areas that we see for computer development are in those areas. We saw, I think a couple years ago, we talked about the Classmate PC with you.
Yes.
It was a little 7-inch computer laptop, basically, running a really thin version of Windows. There's a couple of Linux versions, and they were very inexpensive, like $300, $400. There's a version of that was built that if you cranked it, I'm not joking, if you cranked the handle on it for 10 minutes, you'd get almost an hour of battery out of it.
That's pretty cool,
and
actually.
it was meant for those developing countries so that all of their kids could start experiencing computers. When Intel goes into look at WiMAX deployment, WiMAX is a replacement for cellular and wireless technology that allows high-speed internet over big geographic areas. They're not, 5 years ago when that was just coming out, they weren't testing it in the United States because there's all these cell towers and there's all this broadband here. They were going coast to coast in places like Lebanon and creating countrywide internet services for countries that are just developing.
Sure.
And then and then people are able to buy computers that they can crank and charge up the battery and play with it for a while and have very robust internet. It's somewhat sad in some ways that there are countries out there that have better internet in their rural areas than we do in Dodge County.
And that's why, today, obviously, people have the cell phones and their tablets and their computers and all of these other devices. And that's why one of the exciting products that we saw at CES the past year is solar chargers. And we actually sold a solar charging system with some batteries to a church that was going overseas and wanted to take a laptop to this community, to these kids, so they could start to, interact with the world, but they didn't have power. There was no AC power there. So what do? We got this, basically it's a big battery and a little fold-out solar panel. And during the day, it would charge up the battery, and then you can actually run the computer off of the solar panel while it's light out, and then when it gets dark at night, you can run it off the battery.
It has USB ports so that you can charge cell phones and charge other devices when you don't have a generator or other power source. And it's other than the creation of the battery, and when the batteries fail the disposal of the battery, it's pretty green.
And there's all kinds of uses. Obviously, in Wisconsin, if somebody's going on a long hunting or camping trip and they just want to make sure that they have a cell phone just in case something happens.
And these start relatively small and are inexpensive when you're talking about a cell phone solar charger or those types of things. But they got large. Some of these were the size. Think of a cooler that you might go tailgating in, or tailgating in. I mean. With. Right. Not quite as big as one you tailgate in, but take two coolers, stick them next to each other, and that might be your solar battery case and an array that goes with it that you can use to charge and run things like small refrigerators.
Sure. Well, I heard last week of a brand new, exciting battery that was just developed overseas. I don't know if it was India or Pakistan. No, it wasn't Pakistan. It was India or someplace over there, where scientists think they have finally broken into what is going to be the next battery for cell phones, which is it's an ion battery, but you can fully charge. No, I'm sorry. In 10 minutes, it might even be less than 10 minutes, you can get 70% charge into a phone.
Speed of charging is going to be important, but really it's how much energy the battery can store for its weight is going to be the biggest next breakthrough, I hope, in battery technology. If you think about all of the things that take electricity, and interestingly enough, this is one of the driving forces here is the U.S. military, because you have a soldier with a helmet that has electricity in it.
Right.
You have night goggles. You've got laser targeting on various devices that you may have, and you've got your GPS and all these other things.
Right.
If you're carrying all this stuff, you need to carry around enough energy to make it work with you, to make it work for an extended period of time in the battlefield or for a mission. How much weight in batteries can you carry? You need to shrink down the weight and increase the amount of energy that you can output for an extended period of time, and you need to charge it very quickly. So those two pieces, weight and how much energy you're carrying and how fast they charge, I think will be the very interesting changes in battery technology. There hasn't been a lot of change in battery technology in decades, so we're really looking forward to breakthroughs there.
Yeah, we went from the NiCad, nickel metal hydride type batteries to lithium ion, but lithium ion have gotten a little bit better, but the technology behind them really hasn't changed in a few years. So.
And we can magnetically charge a lithium-ion battery now. I have one in my phone. You set it on a pad. I don't plug my cell phone in anymore. I just set it on a pad and it charges. You can speed charge some new lithium-ion batteries, which is what you were just talking about, but it's new chemical composition and ways in which the energy will be stored in the battery's architecture. I think that will be the next big breakthrough, and whoever comes up with it is going to make mint on that one, because that is currently the holy grail of electronics. How do you get a laptop to last a week on a battery charge?
We talk about how many computing devices we have these days. Think about how many batteries we use these days compared to what every phone, every tablet, every computer.
Yeah, that's going to be a big breakthrough. Battery technology is really, really so important for us.
And even things that don't have traditional batteries. Like I'm wearing a Fitbit bracelet that keeps track of my steps, and it can monitor my sleep and all that. It doesn't have a traditional battery, but I have to charge it. It needs power, obviously, to run. So
how do you know when it needs power?
It emails you.
It sends me an email.
It sends you an email that it's low. What's interesting, I was reading about the Fitbit, and when we measure radio output on devices, so your cell phone puts out a radio signal, and it puts it out pretty constantly, and when you're using it out, it goes up. There's a maximum level that I think FCC allows for that to be next to your head or next to a body part.
Right.
SARS, it's an absorption rate. The Fitbit, what they did to get those numbers down, because there's two ways to deal with a battery: have more battery, use less energy.
Right.
The Fitbit uses ultra low voltage Bluetooth technology, which produces so little of a radio signal that it doesn't even fall on the scale that they use to measure radio output on phones.
So, but this bracelet hooks up to your phone, right?
It does. I can go on my
Bluetooth.
phone. Right. It connects to my phone on Bluetooth.
Okay.
So I can go on my phone right now, and it will pull up my little dashboard, and it'll tell me how many steps I've taken today, how many miles I've walked, how many calories I've burned, how many minutes I've been very active. I also have a Fitbit scale at home, so I get on the scale every morning, and it connects Wi-Fi to the Fitbit cloud, and I can just go on the website and see a graph of how my weight has changed over time and how many steps I've taken, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it's It sends me a summary email at the end of each week telling me how many steps I've walked, what my average steps were per day.
Something that so I was just reading an article about this yesterday, as a matter of fact, which is why I found the ultra low voltage Bluetooth comment. We look at the government to some extent regulates how much radio signal a device can output that you put in close contact to yourself, and that's measured usually by absorption rate. But what happens when you have multiple devices? There's no measurement for that. So I've got my iPhone and my Android device and my laptop, and it's wireless, and I've got Wi-Fi in my house, and I've got Bluetooth everywhere. There's no measurement for how many items all putting out radio frequencies at the same time that you can be exposed to and what effect it has. And that, with the advent of how many of these devices we all carry around, has become quite interesting. So if you talk about your Bluetooth connected watch or your iWatch when they come out, and your iPhone or your Android phone and your Fitbit, all of them on your person at the same time, what's the effect of it?
Right.
So there will be some interesting changes, I'm sure, to regulation there.
This is maybe before your time, but do you remember back in the day, and John might remember this, farmers were complaining about high voltage towers killing their cows. I don't know if you remember that or not, but
they still sometimes do.
Right. And now we've got all these radio frequencies and all these different things that are out in the air. I mean, they got to have some effect on something. Maybe has anybody even investigated? Maybe that's what's killing the bees.
That's interesting. I didn't think of that. The bees.
It could be
all comes down to the bees because,
right.
Oddly enough, they pollinate a lot of the things we eat.
Yeah, the important things in life. Oh, we got a phone call. Hi, you're on with Bill and Jeff from InterQuest. How can we help you?
Yeah, I got a question about tablets. From what I understand, you can get your service through an internet provider or a cell phone provider.
Yeah.
And I was wondering which one is best.
To get your internet service?
No, the service for a tablet.
Okay. So generally speaking, tablets come in two major varieties. You can either get the Wi-Fi only version of the tablet, or you can get the tablet that has sort of the built-in cellular internet connection. So my tablet, for instance, is Wi-Fi only. So if I'm driving down, if I'm passenging and we're going down the road in the car, and I want to be able to connect to Facebook or whatever it is, the only way I can get online is to take my phone and turn it into a hotspot.
Right.
Whereas, but if I'm reading a book or something I have stored on the tablet, it doesn't matter. Most of the time, when I'm at home, I already have internet at home, I already have Wi-Fi at home, so I don't want to spend the extra money to have an always-on device. Other people, though, they travel around a lot. They always want to be able to get on the internet like they do with their cell phone.
Right.
So you can actually buy your tablet from a cell phone company like the Verizon store, U.S. Cellular store. And when you do that, basically it'll have like a little Verizon or U.S. Cellular modem inside the tablet that is always connected to the internet, and then you have to have a service contract that you pay monthly for to get on the internet with that device.
So what do you want, sir? Do you want your tablet to be hooked up to be internet ready, or do you want your tablet to be able to go through Wi-Fi to use the internet maybe you currently have?
I would say internet ready.
Okay. Yeah, then you're almost gonna have to go through probably a cellular site, right? A cellular store. I mean, although Apple iPads you can get them with 4G,
but you have to pay for separate subscription to AT&T or Verizon for that.
Okay.
Yeah, around here, I believe still at the Apple store, usually it comes with like an AT&T modem. I think they may have an option for Verizon, but you probably will get the best deal if you go directly to the cellular store, because what they'll do is they'll discount the tablet just like they do with cell phones. They'll give you a deal on the tablet because they know they want to get you in for that service contract.
So do you do a lot of traveling that you need to have internet directly on your tablet?
No.
Okay, so and that's the reason I ask. I mean, were you planning and using it mostly like at home?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have internet currently at home?
Yes.
Okay. In that case, then you could go. Then that opens up the doors to you buying almost any kind of a tablet you wanted to, right?
Your best bet, if you're going to use it mostly at home, is to not pay for one of the other services.
Yes.
Because you already have internet at your house, and you would just set up, if you don't have one already, a wireless access point. For your house, that can be as little as $50 or $60.
Right.
And those last for between 3 and 7 years, depending on the quality and some luck. And then you get your tablet to work anywhere within range of that device, and it shares your wired internet connection. And that's really the way to go because there's no monthly fee then.
Yeah, that just all works off of Wi-Fi because I believe, even my Kindle Fire has Wi-Fi on it and hooks up directly at home with the same signal that my wife uses for her laptop.
Right. And they have free Wi-Fi at like McDonald's and some other restaurants.
Sure.
There's free Wi-Fi at various stores. So if you have your tablet with you and you're at a location that has free Wi-Fi, it's going to get on the internet without having to pay for that cellular service.
And that way you don't have to pay for the cellular service.
And, typically the battery will last longer on a device that's Wi-Fi only.
Yes.
Because if you have that 3G or 4G modem in there, it's constantly going out. That's going to eat up battery as well.
Let me ask this question. Are you used to using a laptop?
Yeah.
Okay, then you might want to think about a convertible. You might want to think about a 2-in-1 like the Asus Transformer or the Surface Pro, because that way you can use it as a laptop or you can disconnect it from the keyboard and use it as a tablet.
Okay, thank you.
You're
All right,
welcome.
thank you.
I think that brings up an interesting question. So we look at Jeff and I get laptops, too frequently sometimes when Jeff breaks them.
Right.
we get tablets pretty frequently every 6-8 months because we need to see what's new and what's out there and how it works. And I was thinking briefly that I would try another 4G connected tablet. And then I discovered that my lease on my vehicle is about expired. Got 3 months left on the lease. So I went and I ordered the new lease vehicle. And I saw in its feature set that it has, supposedly, don't have it yet, it'll be a couple months when I get it, but it says it has, and it comes standard with, a Wi-Fi hotspot built into the vehicle.
Wow.
So that begs to question, if my car is a Wi-Fi hotspot, and my tablet works at home, right, without a 4G modem in it, my tablet works on my wireless at home, it works on my wireless at my office, and all of my clients that I customly visit all have wireless that I can get on. So my tablet works everywhere like that I am. Restaurants generally have free Wi-Fi. The only place that it's not is on a trip or when I'm driving. Hopefully not looking at my tablet while I'm driving. But if my car has a built-in hotspot, will my tablet always work? And do I even need to bother with 4G in it?
Yeah, that's going to be. You'll have to take me for a drive. I want to be part of this.
We're gonna have to try it out.
I want to see this experience. Interquest is on South Spring Street in Beaver Dam. The telephone number is 885-0141. We make techsimple.com. Guys, always great to see you. Thanks again for coming in today.
And we got a new website up there. Give it a shot. Give it a check.
All right, excellent.
And the preceding program, a paid presentation of Interquest